All right. Hey, everybody. Again, Brendan Burchard, founder of Experts Academy and author of the #1 New York Times bestselling book, The Millionaire Messenger. And welcome to this free video training series. I'm so excited for this series to teach you, again, how do you share your message with the world and truly monetize your life experience, your work experience, the knowledge, the wisdom that you've gathered throughout your lifetime that can inspire other people and instruct them how to improve their lives or grow their businesses. So in this first video, I'm going to share with you 10 essentials for a multi-million-dollar expert empire. What must you have in place? What must you know? What must you do to earn all this revenue that you hear about all the time? That these authors and speakers and coaches and seminar leaders and online marketers and these big-name gurus are doing to earn a real revenue and, yes, to change the world too. And if you know my story, you know, it's been an uncommon story, I would say, in a lot of ways. But fortunately, since I've been teaching this, we've empowered tens of thousands of entrepreneurial experts around the world to start sharing their message and building a real revenue base and a real fan base just teaching what they know. And I know for a fact that if I just sat down with you for 5 minutes, we could figure out something that you could be a highly paid expert on. It's just that right now, you're discounting your knowledge. You're discounting your life experience because you think, well, who wants to hear from me? I know my #1 challenge right now is that people hear me and they say, well, I'm no expert, Brendan, and they stop listening. But I think by the time we get through these 10 things, you'll realize, no, in fact, you are an expert in an area, or you can simply become one more quickly than you ever imagined because of the knowledge and the wisdom and the information available to all of us today, and the different roles that you can play as an expert. And, you know, look at my own story. Here I was this struggling 19-year-old kid at one point in my life, and I had an accident. I was in a dramatic car accident in a developing country. And in that journey that I went through with that accident and afterwards, I learned that at the end of our lives, we're all going to ask the same basic questions. We're going to ask, did I live, did I love, and did I matter? And I just wanted to share that story with the world. I just want to tell people, you know, at the end of your life, you're going to wonder, did you live? You know, did you live fully and vibrantly and fully charged? Did you love? Did you love openly and completely and compassionately? And did you matter? Did you make a difference? Maybe you didn't change the whole world, but did you change somebody's world? And those questions, did I live, did I love, did I matter, were so important to me. And I'd tell people about them. They're like, wow, Brendan, you should tell people these questions and you should tell people your story. And I thought, well, how do you do that? It's not like you go to college for that, right? I had no idea how to do it. And people would say, well, be a motivational speaker. And at the time, I was scared to death to speak, so that was not on the radar for me. But they said, well, you could write books, and you could do seminars, or maybe you could be a life coach, or a business coach, or a consultant, or put your information up online. Start a blog. Oh, my God, get on Facebook. And I was like, how do you do all of that? And more importantly, how do you actually earn revenue from that? Because, again, if you have a message, the hardest part in the world is having a message and wanting to teach people something, but having no idea how to build a revenue base from that. So I started my journey, and I learned from the best in the industry just by modeling them, watching them, and ultimately befriending them. And like I said, I've been able to share the stage with and have on my stages some of the greatest legends in history of the industry, from a Tony Robbins and a John Gray and a David Bach to a Harv Eker to, gosh, the list goes on and on, Marianne Williamson and Debbie Ford and Wayne Dyer, and gosh, I've been so blessed to get to work with so many of those people, do great business with some of the greatest online marketers of our time, from Jeff Walker and Frank Kern to even Ryan Dice. And in that process of working with all of these people, I have really got under the hood of this business and started understanding, well, what does it take to get my message out there into the world, both online and offline? And importantly, what I learned is, how do you do it and actually build a real business doing that? And that's my hope for you, is that you can take what you know, or what you can go out and gather information on, and finally you can package it in a way that you can earn a revenue from it and change people's lives with what you know. So again, this video series is all about that. So I hope you entered your name and email at expertsacademy.com so we can continue sending you these free video training series. Starting with this video right here, what are these 10 essentials for you to do this? Well, I'm going to get basic at the beginning, and then I'll go more and more advanced. And the reason I've decided to just stand here and talk to you is because I know you've seen all these big whiz-bang crazy videos this year, you know, with lots of sound and editing and flashy little characters running across. And I just want to say, look, let's just talk to people and break it down. You know, this needs to be your year. So I'm just going to bust down a very simple framework with these 10 essentials and make it very simple for you to understand. And at the end, I'll also illustrate for you just a very simple plan for how, if I was to begin again, how I would make my first $1 million in this industry. And many of you know, when I began, I had no idea how to do it. I was in a place of bankruptcy, and literally within 24 months had earned $4.6 million in sales. And I literally had no idea what I was doing. I was kind of bumbling through. Well, now that I've mastered it and figured it out, we do over $10 million a year. I have a staff of just 5 support team members. And I'll tell you what, I've had the most sane and normal lifestyle in the industry because I've figured out the online component of how to do all this. Clearly, you're watching me online right now, and I've learned how to do this in a way that has really supported my lifestyle, but more importantly, enabled my mission to help inspire and instruct other people on how to improve their lives. You can do this same thing in this industry in terms of getting your message out there. And it all starts with these 10 essentials. Let's jump in. The first thing that obviously we got to do is make sure you've got a subject matter, right? I know it sounds so basic, but hold on a second. If you're going to become an expert, the number one question is, what are you going to become an expert in? Or what are you already an expert in? And I can share with you, I've trained the best people in this category. I'm the highest paid marketing strategist in the world for experts, authors, and thought leaders and speakers. And I can tell you, with working some of the best, from Paulo Coelho, who sold 165 million books worldwide, to getting to share the stage with a Tony Robbins and seeing his business and being a good friend of his now and learning so much from him. I can share with you that you've got to pick your battles. You've got to pick the areas in which you're going to teach on. So what's the subject that you want to start with? You don't have to have narrow it down to just one subject. Ultimately, you can have an expert empire on many subjects. But you know what? It's never which one. It's which one first. What are you going to put your flag in the ground on? What's the subject that you want to teach and train on for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, next decade or two? I was always interested, I was always interested in high performance. What helps people master their psychology and their physiology, their productivity, their ability to persuade. I was interested in leadership and marketing because I wanted to learn how do you start a movement and get a message out there in a big way. I was interested in how to learn to get your voice out there. So my 2 big brands became Experts Academy, getting your voice out there and starting a movement with your message and being paid for it, and also High Performance Academy, helping people become high performers. So how are you going to narrow down what your subject line is? Because I also have 5 other brands now, all in different topic areas, different audiences. But we got to start with deciding something for you. Now, I know you may be experienced in watching this. So my question for you is simply this. Which subject are you going to decide to own online in the next 12 months? Yeah, own it. Because ultimately, if you want to become the highest paid person, you've got to not just dabble in this and go, oh, I'm kind of interested. You've got to get disciplined and say, okay, this little piece right here, this niche, this topic, I'm going to become a known expert in this space. And doing that is much easier today than you've ever imagined. And we'll show you that through these 10. So let's start thinking about this subject. What's going to be the subject you're going to own? Well, let's start with your passions. What is it that, for example, you love to learn already? When I started in my first entrepreneurial expert endeavor, which was teaching seminars and giving speeches, my topic was leadership. Because I found that, on my bookshelf, I had 10 or 12 or 15 different leadership books. I was fascinated by leaders. I'd study them. I'd listen to them. I wanted to become one and change the world. And I just learned and studied and studied. So what are you already studying? Because the fact is, frankly, if you studied a couple books at this day and age, if you read a couple books on a topic, you're leaps and bounds ahead of most people because they're sitting down watching TV and playing video games, right? People aren't reading and researching anymore. And we're talking about how reading and research helps you become an expert later on. But what are you already learning right now? What do you love to excel at? What are the things you already do great that you could teach people? To a 4-year-old, the fact that you can tie your shoes well is amazing. There's plenty of people on the road of life who have not excelled at the things you have excelled at. What are those things that you have learned that you can become a subject matter expert on? What else? Well, what do you love to, it's weird to say, it's a weird term, but what do you love to preach? What is it that you like to preach in terms of values to other people? What are the things you're always teaching people about how to live a good life or grow a good business? You know, if you had a soapbox to get up to the world and say, hey, look, here's how to live a good life, what would you say to them? If you could say, here's how to run a great business, what would you say? If you could say, here's how to have a great relationship or a great marriage or be a great parent, what would you say? So these things that you would love to preach, I know it sounds weird to say that word, but really it's just communicating and sharing values. What values would you love to communicate? Look at 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. The book came out in 1989. I think it's still on the bestseller list today. Why? It's really a book preaching a set of values and habits that can make people have more character, integrity, and yes, effectiveness in their personal lives and their business lives, right? They wouldn't use the word preach, and many people get weird when I say that, but ultimately he's sharing values. Ultimately, the greatest leaders of our time, Martin Luther King, right? Gandhi, Mother Teresa, these people were sharing values. They were preaching a set of values and a way to live life that people found meaningful, and that can be a true expert career. People say all the time, well, Brennan, you can't make money teaching soft topics. Really? Because High Performance Academy does over $1 million a year. So this idea that you can't make money in all these different areas, well, you can't make money teaching spirituality. Really? I think Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra are doing just fine last time I was over at their place. So what are you going to teach and what we love to preach? Well, what also do you love to make right now or in the future would like to make an income from? What is it that you really feel like, wow, maybe let's say you might be a very successful chiropractor. Well, why don't you become a subject matter expert in a sense that you teach chiropractors to start a business, to run a good business, to live a good life? Maybe you are already making an income from teaching marketing. Why not become a marketing consultant? Maybe you're already a marketing consultant. Why not become now an expert in teaching marketing to other people? Maybe you are an amazing, amazing, amazing executive at a big company. Why not teach other executives to become great executives as well? All you have to do is take your knowledge and information, package it into frameworks and systems and products, and offer that to the world, which we'll talk about. But that's some things to think about. My ultimate question and challenge to you is this. What is the subject that you are going to own in the next 12 months, no matter what category you've been playing in, no matter what your brand has been, no matter what topics you've been an expert in the past? What is it going to be for the next 12 months? What's going to be the next 3, 4, 5 years? Right? You've got to be more strategic in thinking about this, and I think that's one of the gifts that Experts Academy has always given, is it gives people a more strategic way to think about this, not in terms of a quick get-rich scheme to throw up an opt-in page, but rather as a real career. You can have a real career making millions of dollars sharing your advice, your how-to information. We've proven it with tens of thousands of students. We've proven it over and over and over and over again with my own brands and my businesses, because I'm the guy who's not just preaching and teaching this stuff. I do it every single day. I'm doing it with you right now, sharing my message and building a business. You can do this. Now, what else do you need to have? Well, you better have in place some stories. I know it doesn't sound, again, super advanced here, but guess what the world is driven by right now? Story. Guess what differentiates one brand from another these days? Stories. Guess what differentiates all of us experts today? Our stories. You know, we all have the same tools and technology. That's ubiquitous today. But what differentiates people is the quality of their stories, how they connect with people, how they explain who they are, how they're different, what value and service they have to offer to the world. And you have to understand that your thoughtfulness in developing stories is one of the most important things you can ever do. Well, gosh, what stories specifically must you have? Well, I'll share the first one with you, is that you've got to have credibility. You've got to have stories which explains your credibility. And these stories can be very basic stories that explain different ways that you've had developed your credibility. And so if you've ever seen me teach Experts Academy or some of my other videos online, you'll see me talk about this model right here, that there are 2 ways, really 3, to develop and demonstrate your expertise, right? A lot of people say, well, Brendan, he's that guy. You know, whenever I get criticized, it's usually somebody who has never actually paid attention or watched these longer videos that I do, and they never understood that I'm not out there trying to say anyone in the world can become an expert, but I am out there saying everybody can become an expert if they do specific principles that we know build expertise and demonstrate that. So these 2 R's, as an example here, to demonstrate your credibility, you can have 2 different kinds of stories. There's the story, the result story. That's the first R. The result story is, what results have you gotten? If you're going to become an expert on real estate, well, your result story is how you've gone out there and you didn't know what you're doing, you figured out, and now you sell homes all the time, as an example. And you've gotten lots of results as that, and you've done a great job as that. But here's where I get criticized sometimes. I also say, if you're going to become a real estate expert, you don't necessarily have to have ever sold a house at all. And people say, what are you talking about? Oh my God, sacrilege. And I go, no, hold on. What if you just went out and you interviewed the top 20 real estate experts and performers in the world, and you codified what they taught? You broke it down into a system, into frameworks. Would you still be a valuable expert? Well, the answer is yes. Look at Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill was never rich himself at the time, but he wrote this book called Think and Grow Rich. He went and interviewed Carnegie and all of his cronies. He went and discovered the path to wealth, and he taught it through Think and Grow Rich, which is now one of our industry's most successful books of all time, right? So he had the reporter or the researcher's story. His story was, I've gone out and I've interviewed all the experts in this space, and here's what they had to say. So he had credibility in that sense because he was a reporter. Well, of course, if you can combine these two in your expert story positioning of credibility, that you've gotten results and you've researched other people, you're that much more credible. And this intersection between the two of them, between becoming a results expert and a reporter expert, is in the middle is another R, the role model expert. Look, we all listen to Oprah because she inspired us, because she was a role model for so many people around the world. In some areas she taught on that people listened to, she never got even results in there. But people would listen to her advice and her guests because she had credibility because of her fact that she was such a good role model, right? So when you combine when you have that intersection of getting results and researching and reporting on other people, and you're living a good life as a role model, you have more credibility than you could ever imagine. Make sense? Okay, the other piece here about your story is the story that you have to develop and demonstrate is your story of connection, right? Is the story of you explaining why you are like your audience. It's about developing a connection with, a rapport with your audience by helping them understand that, you know what, you've been through the same struggles, you've been through the same challenges, and if you haven't, you certainly have been in situations in which you can empathize and understand, right? And the stories that you have of connection are not what most people are going to teach you in this industry, so please take warning. You know, plenty of people in the industry say, well, go out and, you know, be a chest-thumping, you know, braggart and demonstrate all your results right up front. And it's like, yeah, you know what, sharing your results is important. But you know what, no one wants to go to lunch or dinner with a braggart. Be somebody who is human and shares your own struggle. The greatest stories of connection and honestly credibility is the story of struggle. You know, when I share my story, and I know I'm kind of teaching you what I do throughout this process too, but when I share my story at my live events about my accident and trying to get my own message out to the world, it's a struggle. It's a story of struggle. You know, when I first began, I had no idea what I was doing. I struggled. I not only was frustrated I couldn't make a difference, but, you know, I remember a time when I'm working late at night trying to write my book, and I had to move in with my girlfriend at the time, and we're, you know, in this tiny apartment in San Francisco struggling to pay for food, let alone, you know, make ends meet in general. And we're in this tiny little apartment, and she snuck in late at night into the bedroom as I'm working on this tiny little table with my laptop, trying to get my message out to the world and trying to figure out webs and sites and all this other stuff. And I remember watching her come in, and I had been using the bed as a bigger desk because my tiny little table I was on wasn't big enough. So on the bed I had my files, and I had my bills, and I had all my notes for what I was trying to do. And she didn't want to disturb me, so she came in and she snuck and crawled quietly under the covers. And I remember looking over and seeing my lady sleep under the weight of my own bills and my own inability to get my message out. And that was a changing day for me. I thought, I will never, ever, ever again not figure out this money thing. You know, I'd never figured out money before. Money has never been important to me. You know, I'm blessed now to have succeeded at this at a speed and a level in which very few people in our industry's history ever did. I mean, to go from 0 to $4.6 million in just 24 months and now do over $10 million a year doing this, there's not many people who've ever done that. There's specifically very few people who've ever done it by making $1 million in each of the 5 roles that you can monetize your message in: author, speaker, coach, seminar leader, and online marketer. And I made $1 million in each of those areas. And I'll tell you what, though, it only came from that struggle of having to figure out, how do I get my message out there, and being so dedicated to it. So I share that with you as an example of a story and a way to build towards credibility. Could you imagine if I started this video and it was all, I've made $1 million in each area as an author, speaker, coach, seminar leader. It's bullshit. And the people who are out there telling you to go out and brag and show just all these pictures of your money and the success, they don't understand humanity. They don't understand transparency in today's modern age. People want to feel you and trust you and have a level of authenticity with you. And to do that, you've got to be willing to show your scars and show the challenges you've gone through. It makes you human, it makes you more trustable, and frankly, it makes you someone they want to watch from, learn from, listen to. Yes, they want the turn in which you had your struggle and it became a story of success, or you've struggled and then you went out and researched people to break through. But at the end of the day, the ability for you to share those stories with just authenticity and passion and care for the people you are serving, that's what's going to differentiate you. I know I went on that a little longer than I imagined, but we'll go through these a little faster to move this video along. But this is important stuff, and you've got to understand this. Next, you've got to have your strategies, right? There's a couple different kinds of strategies. You've got your how-to strategies, and you've got what I call your high-performance strategies. And these strategies really differentiate you in the marketplace, and it's what makes people want to buy your stuff, frankly. What do I mean by that? Well, you can know your topic, and you can have your stories that explain you're an expert on it, but ultimately, you've got to have value to add to other people. And the way that you do that is by giving advice, giving them strategies for how to improve their life or grow their business in some way or another. And so you've got to have your how-to strategies. How can they do what you do, or how can they improve their life? Specifically, what are the 5 steps, or the 7 habits, or the 10 secrets, or the 15 ways to do X, right? What's that how-to stuff? And then ultimately, what's high performance? Not just how to do it, but how to do it with excellence, to become one of the best at it. That's what makes you different. So if you're going to teach how to put up an opt-in page, that's one thing. But if you teach them how to put up an opt-in page that is a higher performing conversion and builds a higher performing brand and ultimately builds a reputation that helps them become one of the best in the industry, that's a whole different level, right? And there's how-to and high-performance strategies in all these different areas, right? Many people, these are some of the most lucrative areas. Some people say, well, I'm not an expert on anything, Brennan. And I say, wait, if we sat down and I asked you, come up with 5 pieces of advice on how people can have success and sanity in their life, or how people can earn money or save money or deal with their money well, or have good relationships, or practice a good life and spirituality and growth. In each of these areas, almost any topic area you're going to address, you'll bring up these topics, right? I mean, if I'm going to teach you experts stuff about how building an expert empire, I'm going to talk about how to do it successfully with sanity. I'm going to tell you about how the money works. I'll tell you about how to develop relationships in the industry and relationships with your customers. I'll tell you about how to be a great human being and advance yourself and challenge yourself and grow your abilities and your knowledge along the way too. Right? I'll talk about all those topics. But I really believe that what your number one challenge is that you, just like all of us, we discount our life story. And it's really unfortunate. We discount our voice. We think, who are we? And we don't realize what we have to teach. So I'd like to issue this challenge to you right now and set up a little bit of a competition here. What I'd love for you to do is this. I'd love for you to look at any area, any topic area you want that you've experienced in your life or you've gone through. If you don't know a topic area or nothing comes to you off mind, think of any of these. How people can succeed in their life, or how people can manage their finances, or how people can have great relationships in business or in their marriages, or how people can live a good life, or how people can grow. And I want you to think about a subject, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to shoot a video of yourself or of a screen flow where you just put together a PowerPoint presentation and you record your voice as you go through your PowerPoint and it kicks out a video. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to upload a video sharing just 5 success strategies in any area, okay, of you. Upload a video of you talking or looking direct to camera, sharing 5 success tips in any area. And I want you to upload it into YouTube or into Facebook. Then come back to this page and below this video, post as instructed your link to your video on YouTube or Facebook as instructed below. And here's what I'll do. If you'll go ahead and do that, we'll go through all